Sometimes I sit down to paint when I'm not in the best mood. But maybe that's the whole point of art therapy. To start out feeling like there's a storm cloud over your head, and then, through the process of painting, gradually find your balance again. To calm down, to feel the moment, to reconnect with the world around you. I think that matters, especially in the kind of world we live in today. It often feels fast, chaotic, constantly shifting. So giving yourself a bit of time just to create, to be with yourself, to slow down, it can give you a surprising amount of clarity and even a sense of control over your own thoughts, maybe even your life. We're constantly being told who we should be, what to believe in, what to care about, who to vote for. But creativity, and painting in particular, is one of those rare moments where we get to decide entirely for ourselves what matters, what feels right, what we want to express. That's why I never say, always do it this way or don't do that. I just show you what's worked for me, what I've discovered along the way, and then it's up to you to decide whether it fits your own process. Let me know if you prefer that I don't over-explain what I'm doing, or if you'd like more technical details along the way. Still, I believe the philosophical side has value too, because it shapes what we choose to paint and how we paint it. Sometimes your hand naturally reaches for light, and you end up with a warm landscape and golden clouds. Other times you're drawn to silence, and you find yourself painting a dim street in the rain. It's all a reflection of what's going on inside. The painting becomes more than just a pretty image. It becomes an answer to the question, what am I feeling right now? That's more important than it sounds, because in those moments, we stop imitating and start speaking in our own voice. Even if it's still shaky, it's real. It's alive. That's exactly why understanding composition matters. When you're feeling calm inside, you'll probably place the horizon evenly, balance objects on both sides, use soft transitions and warm tones. But when your mind feels chaotic or tense, your hand instinctively pulls the lines on a diagonal, adds contrast, creates tension and movement. These aren't just tricks to make it pretty, they're tools to express what you're going through. Contrast, for example, is its own kind of language. It can be in tone, in color, in the size of your shapes. Even one small dark dot on a light background can set the entire mood of a piece. In classical painting, they teach you that. But in practice, you have to feel it, when to push the difference and when to soften it. And again, it comes back to that same question. What am I trying to say here? So there is. By the way, at this point, I'm starting to show where the light is coming from. That's why the ground on the left is lighter, and the slope toward the river is in shadow. Light and shadow matter, but so does temperature. The scene here is moving toward midday, so I'm keeping the lit areas slightly cooler. In the darker spots, I'm adding some warm browns to give the greens a richer, warmer tone. Cool light usually comes from adding white, but if you want to get a little fancy, you can also mix in a bit of the sky color. And I say sky color because it isn't always blue. It might be turquoise, lilac, soft pink, even yellow, depending on the mood of the landscape. Or your own mood, honestly. If you're feeling a bit off, a gray, black, or even patchy sky makes just as much sense. That's the beauty of art therapy. You get to paint whatever feels right, no rules. This particular piece is actually a commission, so I'll show you at the end how it's coming together and why I've made some of the choices I did. Now, as for oil, to me it's something special. It has weight, softness, and presence. You're not just applying color, you're shaping light. You can push a brush stroke around, blend into it, come back an hour later. It's still workable. There's a freedom in that, a kind of calm. You're not racing the clock like with acrylic. Acrylic dries so fast, sometimes too fast. If you miss the window, that's it, the layer's locked in. Oil doesn't rush you. It gives you space to feel your way through a painting. If something doesn't sit right, you wipe it off or work into it. Some people call it slow, but that's what gives the work more depth. And maybe, just maybe, in this age of fast content, fast connections, fast everything, something slow is exactly what we need. While the paint's drying, let me show you something. This is me picking out an easel. Doesn't matter what brand it is. What really matters is the weight. The heavier, the better. especially if you're someone who tends to get expressive with the brush. There are so many little details that can make or break your experience. The right brushes, good paint, the right mediums to mix or thin it, proper canvas material, and even something as basic as how you hold the brush or where you stand while painting. Some of these things I learned in art school. Some I picked up from other painters, some came with time. But the one thing I know for sure, never stick to just one teacher. Learn from many and eventually you'll find your own voice. If you're curious, I put together a painting course. It's for beginners, but also for anyone who wants to ground their practice in real technique. It costs about as much as filling up your car, but way less depressing. You pay once and get access for as long as you need. Links in the description. Another thing I love, oil holds color like nothing else. It doesn't go flat or dull as it dries. Whites stay bright, ochres stay warm, and blues really glow. Sometimes it feels like the color isn't just sitting on the surface, but lit from within. You can't quite get that with acrylic, and definitely not with digital. And maybe the most meaningful part, oil paintings last. If you build them properly, they can survive for centuries. The colors don't fade, they often get better. There's something powerful in that. Laying down a brushstroke and knowing it might outlive you. You're leaving something behind, and somehow you feel that even in the moment. I've never fully bought into the idea of pure talent. To me, it always felt a bit like a myth, something people say when they want to explain someone's success without looking at the work behind it. Sure, some people have a natural eye or a steady hand early on, but that's not the full story. What really matters is consistency, curiosity, and the willingness to mess up a lot without quitting. Think about someone like Beethoven. People call him a genius. And sure, he was. But he also rewrote his music constantly, tore up pages, and kept working even after he lost his hearing. That's not magic. That's obsession, discipline, and something deeper than just talent. Or take Michael Jordan. He was cut from his high school basketball team. The difference wasn't inborn talent, the difference was what he did next. I think painting, like anything else, is a skill you build by showing up, especially in the beginning when nothing looks the way you imagined. That's where most people give up. But if you keep going, something shifts. Your eye gets sharper, your hand steadier. It's like tuning an instrument. Not dramatic, but real. So when people say, "I wish I had your talent," I honestly think, you probably do. You just haven't spent 1,000 hours fighting with your own brush yet. And that's okay. We all start somewhere. The key is just not to stop. So here's a piece of advice. Don't show the world your blisters. I mean it. Most people don't want to see the hard work, the sleepless nights, the self-doubt. They want to believe in magic. They want to think it just happens. Because the truth, that they could do it too if they were willing to fight their own laziness, is uncomfortable. And listen, I get it. I'm not a machine either. Sometimes lying on the couch doing absolutely nothing is exactly what I need. I'm not judging. I fully participate. We all do. But just know, if it looks effortless, it's probably because someone hid the effort well. At the same time, I do believe some people are naturally wired for certain things. There's something there, a predisposition. But here's the catch. If life doesn't give you the time, space, or even the idea that you might be good at something, that talent can stay completely hidden. And those people are everywhere. They work in grocery stores, ride the subway, lay bricks, do accounting. They live next door. In the village where I grew up, we had a neighbor, a quiet man, and he had a voice unlike anything I've ever heard. I'm not exaggerating. It was deep, rich, powerful. Think Paul Robeson level, that good. But he was shy about it, really shy. He didn't believe he could sing. Whenever he did, he'd ask us to turn off the lights, said it helped him feel less exposed. And the thing is, life hadn't been kind to him. You could hear that in his voice too. There was beauty, but there were scars. It made me realize talent isn't always loud. It doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it whispers from the shadows, and unless someone listens, it stays there unseen. That's why I think the act of creating, whether you think you're good or not, is already a kind of bravery. Where does this need to create come from? Is it some genetic twist that turned a clever ape into a human? Or maybe something deeper, a spark from something greater than us, or both. I don't know the answer, but I think about it a lot. Why do so many people feel this pull to write, to paint, to build, to sing, even when no one's asking them to? Why does it feel necessary, like breathing? And why do some people admire it, even crave it, while others react with mockery or even aggression? You know the type. Hey, look at this nerd with a violin. That kind of hostility. I think it's not really about the violin. It's about what it represents. The possibility of another life. One that isn't just about survival, but about meaning. That can be hard to face, especially if you've lived a life where joy and softness feel out of reach. There's also a real link between creativity and stability. People like to say, art comes from suffering. And sure, pain can shape deep work. But the truth is, when you're constantly worried about rent or food or basic safety, it's incredibly hard to create. I know what it's like to be broke. I have lived in that space where survival takes up all the oxygen. And in that space, the idea of making something beautiful can feel distant, even selfish. That's why I have a real problem with that old saying, the artist must starve. Honestly, I think that idea was made up by people who benefited from others staying poor and dependent. It's not romantic, it's exploitation. And it's something we need to let go of if we want art and artists to truly thrive. So if you're trying to build a life where you can create and still be okay, financially, emotionally, you're not being greedy, you're being honest, and maybe even brave. Sometimes it's worth digging out an old folder or pulling a canvas from the corner where it's been sitting for 6 months and just looking at it with fresh eyes. More often than not, you don't just see the painting, you see yourself, who you were when you started it, what was on your mind, what kind of colors you were drawn to. Sometimes it's surprising. Wow, that's what I was feeling back then? And other times you feel like picking up the brush again, but from a new place with a different tone. It's like having a conversation with yourself, but not a logical one, not with words, with colors. And with every one of those conversations, something inside you shifts. You notice you've become softer or sharper. You're no longer afraid of empty space. You've learned how to leave room between brushstrokes. And maybe in life too, you're leaving more room for silence, for stillness, for not knowing. To me, that's the real flavor of life. Not living your best life every day like those shiny quotes say, but simply noticing that you've changed, that you're paying more attention to yourself, to what you're doing, even if it's just making a tuna salad with fresh mint. Yeah, it sounded weird. It tasted weird too. But I still remember that moment because I did it out of curiosity, not from a recipe, but with that artist's mindset. What if? That little what if? That's life. And the more of those moments you have, the better life starts to taste. Not because you're suddenly mindful, but because you're actually there, present, messy, spontaneous. Sometimes what you make isn't a salad. It's something totally unexpected, but at least you were in the moment. Not just consuming, but participating. Painting is just one way to tap into that space. Sometimes it's visual, sometimes it's taste, sound, movement. The point is, give yourself permission to make things, even if they turn out weird, especially if they do. Because in those weird little moments, something real sneaks through, something you can't buy or borrow, something that's yours. A lot of artists, especially in the beginning, say, I haven't found my style yet. And it always sounds like there's this secret room somewhere, with their style already waiting inside, and they just don't have the code to open the door. But the truth is, style isn't something you find. It's what's left when you stop trying to be someone else. It's built from small things you're often not even aware of. The way you hold your brush, the colors you enjoy mixing, the details in other people's work that quietly move you. Sometimes even your mistakes become part of your style, because you repeat them unconsciously, and over time they start working for you. And that's a good thing. When you paint consistently, choosing references, experimenting, pausing, coming back, you're not searching for a style, you're becoming yourself. At first, it might feel awkward or inconsistent, maybe even a little off, but it's alive. And that matters more than any polished concept. So if you feel like you don't have a style right now, chances are you're already in the middle of growing it. So no, style doesn't always arrive slowly. Sometimes it does hit like a flash. You try something new, fall in love with it, and for a while that's your thing. That burst of energy can be real, and it's exciting. But even then, it keeps evolving. It may shift, soften, sharpen, or not. And that's okay too. Sometimes your style feels like a phase, sometimes it feels like home. Other times it comes quietly. With each new painting, something settles. You take in all the tutorials, all the workshops, all the paintings you've ever admired, and your brain, without asking, filters through it all. It starts picking favorites. Then one day, without planning it, your hand moves a certain way, you mix a certain color, and it just feels right. You might think it came out of nowhere, but really, it's been building up all along. The key is to give your inner voice room to breathe. Let it pull from memory, from taste, from what lights you up, not what looks correct. Your style isn't something you force, it's something you notice, like recognizing your own reflection. Not because it's perfect, but because it's familiar. So if you're still in that space of trying, testing, borrowing, that's not a detour. That is the process. The more you paint, the more chances you give your style to show up. Not as a formula, but as a feeling. The moment when what you're painting finally feels like you. Sometimes you post a painting, maybe a landscape, a still life, something simple, and someone writes, "This gave me chills. I feel like I've been there." Or, "My grandma used to love those colors." And suddenly you realize you don't know each other. You live in different countries. Maybe you don't even speak the same language. But for a few seconds, you're connected. No explanations, no words needed. Art can do that because it speaks directly to feeling. It bypasses logic. It slips past defenses. Someone might not know anything about technique or perspective, but they'll still feel it. There's warmth here, or there's loneliness, or maybe just someone tried really hard to be honest. It's such a deeply human thing to recognize yourself in someone else's work. Even if you never meet or exchange a single word, there's a kind of bridge that forms, quiet, invisible, but real. It's not about delivering a message or making a statement. It's just one emotion quietly reaching out to another. To me, that might be the real purpose of art. Not just to express yourself, but to remind someone else that they're not alone. Whether it's a painting, a song, or even a piece of bread baked with care. When something carries warmth and attention, it finds someone who feels it, even through a screen, even years later. That's why, even if you're unsure of yourself or wondering who even cares, share it. Let it be a small thing. Sometimes the smallest things are what helps someone remember that life isn't just struggle, it's connection.